Moolala is brought to you by the nonprofit credit counseling agency Credit Canada. Tax season is probably not something you're looking forward to, unless maybe you're an accountant and this is your true passion. But for single seniors, paying taxes can be an even bigger frustration for a whole bunch of reasons. Single Seniors for Tax Fairness is a Canadian advocacy group that is looking to address the inequities it says this demographic faces. Jane Robertson is the founder of the group. She joins us now to tell us more. Hello there.
Hello, Bruce.
You yourself are a single senior, and you've been retired for some time?
Retired at 62 and I'm now 85. So that's a
Okay.
lot of retirement years.
You're an experienced retiree.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you define senior singles?
All right. Our group encompasses everybody who does not have a life partner who is over 65. So that includes widows, widowers, lifelong singles like me, that's my state,
Hmm.
divorcees, and people who are separated.
And let's talk about some of the examples here about
Mhm.
the circumstance that you find yourselves in
Yeah,
versus the circumstance for someone who is still coupled.
yes.
What are
Oh,
some examples?
the first case in our documents really says it all. A woman who has a retirement income, no pension income of $115,000, and she gets most of her OAS clawed back because that it's such a hefty income that she's got. And she goes to her financial planner and says, "What can I do about getting more OAS?" And he says, "Nothing. You're single. You
Hmm.
have no flexibility at all." And then he says, "Just out of interest, let's pretend you had a partner." And that 115,000 was coming into the household, and it was the only income for the household. That means you and your partner will each declare incomes of $57,500. So half of the 115,000.
Hmm.
As a result of that, you each qualify for full OAS, old age security payments, which means in the vicinity of $8,000 each. Plus, you will have the benefit of age credit because you will each declare less than $90,000. So that's another couple of $1,000 or one and a half or so.
Hmm.
And also, you will pay much less tax. You will pay exactly $21,000 less tax than this single woman is currently paying. So that is a portrait of the
Hmm.
inequities that exist in terms of finances
And
and taxes.
you flag the other dynamic that a single person does not have half the expenses. It's
Right?
you say two-thirds, but it's certainly
Mhm.
not half. The
Uh-huh.
other variable you highlight is home ownership. How does
Right.
that link to a single senior? Because as I read it, I think of that being certainly an issue, but an issue distinct from whether you are coupled or not.
You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. I have a ton of single friends who are in the vicinity of my age, and I think every one of them owns a home. I
Mm,
think I'm the only one who is a lifelong renter
mm,
because, to be honest, I've never wanted a home particularly. I mean, I've always been alone, which is not an ideal situation, but
mm.
why would I want 10 rooms to walk around in instead of three or four? But that is a whole separate issue. What we use the idea of home ownership for is a comparison point,
Mm.
because we do say that people who own homes have a whack of money they have an asset that is totally tax free, whereas I am penalized because I don't have a home. The only tax free asset I have is a TFSA,
Mm.
whereas the homeowner has this fabulous increase by thousands every year, plus, and sometimes that's millions, plus their own tax-free assets.
We know when we look at the mortality tables that it is more likely that you will be a single senior female because
Yes,
women tend to last longer than men.
right.
Your website and your material doesn't really put a fine point on the gender dynamic at play here, but I think it's important that we talk about it. How do
Okay.
you see gender coming into play here? Because we know that in their working years, a woman working alongside a men for generations would have earned 80 cents, 60 cents, whatever the number is, on the
Hmm.
dollar versus a male peer.
Well, to be honest, we like to treat men and women equally when it comes to the position of seniors.
Hmm,
There is it, you're absolutely right. By the time you get up into the senior category, sort of 70s and 80s,
hmm,
there are double the number of single seniors, single female seniors
hmm.
as than men at that in that stage, because men do die earlier. But uh, we just don't want to make a distinction here. I mean, I think maybe we would get further with the government because the government is very much pro female, and
Hmm.
which is fine. But I think there's a big case to be made for men. All you have to do is look at the homeless population. There aren't too many women in the streets
Hmm.
compared to the number of men, etc. Anyway, yes, you're right.
I think it's an important dynamic because one of the other case studies you had was Susan and Jill. Susan was married, then bought a
Yes.
house. Jill did not marry. She did not buy a house. She ran a small business, but Jill
Uh-huh.
did work. She could have bought a house. She didn't, but she
Yeah.
could have. And
Yes.
she didn't have the expense of raising the kids that Susan and her then husband had. So
Hmm.
I think one of the challenges is where do the demographics end and the choices begin? Because Jill
Uh-huh.
made some choices.
She did. She did. And Jill, it just so happens a sideline to that is that Jill, although she has no children of her own, is very much attached to three nieces and a nephew, two nieces and a nephew, three of them, children of an immigrant mother who came from the poorest of the poor in one of the Caribbean countries, had never had a day of schooling, cannot. She arrived here signing her name with an X.
Mm,
She couldn't even write her own name.
mm,
So uh, Jill that's where Jill's money has gone. She has supported that family. She made a down payment on a house for them. She
mm.
sent the kids to camp. They lost the house because of the marriage situation that they were in. So Jill has been paying rent. And prior to that, she paid mortgage fees. She sent the kids to camp. She helped pay for their tuition in community college. They're all in their late
Right.
20s or early 30s now, and big successes
Mm.
on their way to a nice middle class life. They're not going to, I mean, she sent them to camp. She sent them, took them to ski lessons. And Jill is very happy that that's how she did
Mm.
spend her money.
Single Seniors for Tax Fairness
Mhm.
is the name of your group. We just have a minute or two left.
Yes.
What is the call to action here? Who are you trying to influence, and what do you want them to do?
Okay. Well, the ultimate call to action is directed towards the government, the federal government, whom we want to give equal rights to. The government gives so many pluses, like income splitting, and also the other thing is transfer of portfolios like TFSAs
Mhm.
and RIFs and so forth. There are major benefits to being a couple. And once those people lose a partner, that's when they awaken to the fact that their tax bill is going to be horrendous. They can't pass on their RIF payments to a family member, et cetera, uh, their RIF portfolio, I should say. So all we're asking for, since the government is so reluctant always to withdraw all the benefits it gives to certain groups, all what we're asking for is equality. It is
Mm.
why are we without a partner being penalized because we don't have a partner, because that's really the bottom line of the whole argument, of the whole situation. Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, Jane, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come and let us know about the work that you are doing on this front.
Well, thank you very much, Bruce.
Jane Robertson is the founder of a group called Single Seniors for Tax Fairness, and their mission is to try and eventually and over time lead to changes in the way taxes are handled in this country.